Okay, we are not live. I did not change scenery here by buying a new location. This is my friend's place in Austin, Texas, as I'm here for Gay Bowl 24. Over 100 teams in flag football converging here for several championships, and it's going to be a fun time. But a little bit of bonus coverage. JB sent me a note on, what was it, Tuesday or Monday, actually, I think it was, that Hardin Simmons and Howard Payne decided to change their game to Friday night. So I'm going to get to my first Region 3 game of the season. That means I will have covered Regions 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. But Region 4, I have an idea what to do for that. So we'll see where that goes.
I have a good idea, too.
What do you think?
Happy Halloween, everybody. Congratulations to my old hometown, the LA Dodgers, for winning the World Series. Don't worry, Frank, I'm not going to wear this helmet this whole time, but have a little fun. It's a Halloween show, and maybe there'll be some creepy, crawly things. We'll see, but no, we've got some news to talk about. We got some people to catch up with. So why don't we get this rolling here? Yeah,
you mean this
Vermont
news?
State University. Yeah, that came out yesterday. Vermont State Castleton, which is kind of funny to say completely, or VSU Castleton, which we've always sort of just talked to them about Castleton. Now part of the NJAC. They've found a home, and that's great for their players and for the coaches to provide a little stability. It gives the NJAC 8 teams, which is good from a scheduling perspective. I mean, it might take the Spartans a couple of years to get competitive to the NJAC level, but hey, if there's ever a time to build up a program and get on the road to recruit to do that, no time like the present. So congratulations to them. And I have a feeling the mayor may have a few words to say about their former conference. So I'm just going to sit back and enjoy this show.
Oh, you mean such as this never should have happened in the first place? This is a load of bullshit that we're even talking about this, that they should have never been brought in for 1 year, and anybody that did that should be sued and have their asses sued for basically a bait and switch scenario, that kind of thing, that their leadership needs to be replaced, and anybody that in leadership that will blame somebody else for it, at the end of the day, the buck stops there. I can tell you as a mayor. You mean stuff like that? Is that what you were waiting for me to say?
Well, I wasn't expecting all the expletives, Mr. Mayor, but yes, I thought that was well said. And very appropriate under the circumstances. I mean, I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about the student-athlete experience. And, it seems like some weird sort of regional or conference politics have been getting involved. But good for the Spartans that they're going to move on. And the 10-hour bus ride to Salisbury every other year is going to be a rough one. But hey, you do what you got to do. And at the end of the day, sometimes those long road trips are some of the best memories and times you can make with your teammates. Just kind of hanging out and goofing around in the bus and just watching Halloween movies.
Well, Cortland, the last year during the playoffs, they opted to do the bus trip every time, basically, in this scenario. They didn't always have to do it, from what I remember. And they opted to do it because of how much fun they were having as a team doing it. So, JB, MASCAC, I love the teams in there. Great relationship with Mass Dartmouth. Great relationship with WestCon. Wait a minute. Sorry, WestCon's getting pushed out too. My bad. They're going to Landmark.
And speaking of that conference, actually, Frank, if memory serves, there is actually a game tonight, Thursday, Halloween night, in Region 1. I think it's between...
Which means yesterday when we actually air this.
Yeah. So Thursday, Westfield State at Mass Maritime, 7 p.m. They're doing like a pumpkin kickoff or something. So that'll be the first one on the scoreboard. We'll report on it on Twitter. But kind of interesting. Week 9 starting with a Halloween game. Who knew?
Well, let's get this thing started. This is our Friday Not So Live show for previews of week number 9 on season 17 of In the Huddle. kind of funny that actually at the end of that opening is a player that we're going to have on our show just in mere minutes here. We'll tell you more about him in a little bit when we get to our Region 2 slide. We have kind of a Region 2 bonanza going on with our guests on this show, and so stay tuned. You'll want to see what we're talking about. Our second guest is going to be talking about something really nice that the two teams are doing for children that are underprivileged out there, especially families that are underprivileged. So a lot coming up. You see here, we talk about Centennial, the WEAC are in the spotlight, among others, honestly. And, the MPI, remember, this is one thing I do want to remind teams across the country. If you have 5 wins at this point, if you play a game and you win it and it would have hurt your NPI number this weekend, it will be dropped. It will not count. And so this is where there's going to be a little bit more stability in the NPI scenario, as most teams that we'll be talking about will have the 5 wins ultimately. But the days of team, I think, moved up 33 spots last week, one of the teams in the listings, and that's not going to be happening anymore. As we add more data into it now, it's going to start stabilizing the numbers. But if you have 5 wins, or you're playing a lower end team, and you beat them, no effect. If you lose to them, goodbye. That's kind of the way you got to look at things right now. You brought up the Thursday game in Region 1. We have some other stuff in Region 1, including Del Val at Kings. That is somewhat of a MAC championship game when you think about the way this thing's playing out. WestCon at Mass Dartmouth is basically the MASCAC championship for all intents and purposes. Yes, there are more games to play, but these are key contests in those conferences. WestCon, Mass Dartmouth, we'll talk more about, obviously, in our predictions that'll come up later on. Why did you lean DVU Kings in your mind?
Well, because I really do feel, and it was honestly, I think, bolstered by the tweet that you put out yesterday when you kind of did the MPI cutoff line for Pool C bids and whatnot. So Del Val losing this game would give them their second loss. I mistakenly referred to as Eastern when it should have been Stevenson who beat them in week one in that big surprise thing. So you have the annual JB flub check weekly, actually, is just kind of how it goes with me. This is an elimination game for the Aggies. If they lose, they're not going to the playoffs. They'll probably go to a MAC Centennial Bowl instead. Kings, if they win, they're on their way to the tournament. If they lose, they might be on the outside looking in. But we also view too, they're a win by them. Right now, they're kind of outside the bubble. That win should bolster them in. Obviously from a Pool A perspective, but should get them, kind of above the cutoff line. I think right now they're sitting, right. You can see them at the bottom of the middle row, number 40. So they're, a loss would definitely eliminate them, you would have to think. So this is basically a playoff game in Week 9. Conference championship potential. I mean, I guess there might be some other team. I feel like because FDU Florham has now lost twice. Yeah. So Del Val is 5-1. Kings is 6-0 in the MAC. The head-to-head would give them, theoretically the tiebreaker, but I don't really know. Do you know what the MAC tiebreaker is, Frank? Like, what happens if is it the head-to-head that would give Del Val the Pool A?
If they are untied beyond that one, yes. If there's a third team tied, though, ultimately, I don't know if that's even possible now that the game's been played. So it would be the head-to-head. Well,
Stevenson lost last weekend, so they dropped out. So it's pretty much between these two teams. So this is a playoff, play-in, and elimination game, in my opinion.
Yep. And just to look at this, I picked Mass Dartmouth and WestCon. Mass Dartmouth at 22, WestCon at 42. If WestCon wins, they will jump above the cut line anyway. But if Mass Dartmouth loses in that same realm, they could drop below the cut line or, right in the bubble zone, ultimately. Dropping 14 spots would not be unusual on a loss, but they may actually stay inside the bubble zone and create chaos. So if you're a Texas Lutheran, for instance, right now, you kind of want to see Mass Dartmouth win this game. And that's why you got to start thinking about these things as we kind of go along with this stuff. We can't say definitively what happens because the numbers are just so wild still, but it is what it is. Let's go to Region 2. I'll give you the opportunity to tell folks about it.
Well, yeah, in the landmark, we effectively have a conference championship type of game, too, between Moravian and Susquehanna. Both teams are undefeated in conference. Moravian does have at least one loss, I believe, maybe two. I think they have 2 losses total. But so Susquehanna is the favorite here at home, among other reasons. But Moravian's had a heck of a season. So that should be a good one between the Greyhounds and the Riverhawks. Westminster, they had that exciting win over Case. They're going to Carnegie Mellon. The pack is crazy with all these 5-1, one-loss teams. It's a big pile up there. Washington, Jefferson, Case Western, same kind of thing. Can Case knock, W&J out? And then we have another game that could create national chaos between Muhlenberg and Johns Hopkins. One of the craziest games we ever saw last year with the with the field goal that went into somebody's backside and bounced into Will Leger's hands, and he ran it in for a game-winning score that won them the title, got them into the playoffs. Sent Muhlenberg, packing. Unfortunately, that maybe in this new system they would have had a better chance with some of the way these numbers work, but with one, I don't know, man. I think we should just talk about this weekend's game and what it means for the sort of national scene here.
I think you just gave our guest PTSD, and he just left the entire situation here. He said, "The hell with you guys." After that, they're talking about the game from last year. They're like, "I would have asked that question or something." You think I would have actually asked that question to this man? Well, yeah, I probably would have. Anyway, let's bring him in. Somebody that's a popular guest on our show in the past and is still sticking around, slinging a lot of touchdowns. 95 on his career, I believe it is now, and 5 away from the century mark. Great job he's done. Joe Repetti, quarterback from Muhlenberg College. Joe, I'm sorry that my co-host rather had to bring up that moment of moments from last year. Have you recovered from that from last year yet?
I mean, it's definitely still a thought in our minds. Thinking about that game, we just simply didn't play well enough in all facets to win that football game. It shouldn't even have come down to that last play, and we want to play our brand of football, which is not turning the ball over, which is getting stops on defense, and just not even leave it down to the last play. We just got to play good, sound football, not shoot ourselves in the foot.
Let's talk about who you guys are real briefly here this season, because offensively, you guys are just putting up some big numbers. In fact, we'll go directly to the slide in a second here, where we show your season. Here it is. And, I mean, you look at the total number of points you guys are scoring, 33, 38, 55, 50. I'm still having some nightmares about that game, running up and down for that one. 34, 58, and 49. I mean, nothing below 30 points this season, if I'm reading this correctly. The problem, obviously, is the defense. Maybe you guys are scoring too quickly, and they're dying out there because of the way you guys score so quickly. I don't know what it is exactly, but this is not typical Muhlenberg defense, obviously. 52 against TCNJ, 53 against Ursinus the next week. Obviously, got better against McDaniel, but still kind of up and down. What kind of extra pressure does that put on you to make sure that you're outscoring that other team as they're trying to find themselves here? And what do you think is going to happen here against an offense at Johns Hopkins that we think Bay Harvey is back with? We don't know for sure, but that would obviously play a big role in how this game plays out. I mean, tell us about the season so far and what this defense and offensive scenario means right now.
Right. We've definitely given up some points this year, but that doesn't change our theory on offense at all. We're not blaming those guys for anything we've done. In both the games we've lost, we've looked at our offense internally from an offensive standpoint and picked out on things that we could have improved on. There were so many points we left on the board even in those games, which is hard to believe. But the way we play offense is we just ignore the noise and we just execute our plays. And if the points get put up on the board, they do. And we just move on.
And I'm just glancing over here at some of these statistics. I mean, what a season so far for you, Joe. Already over 2,000 yards passing, 21 touchdowns. You're a pretty good runner too. You've rushed for over 450 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, are some of these rush? It looks like you have the second highest rushing attempts on the team. Is that something that's sort of designed as part of the offense? Like, hey, this guy's got some legs and we're going to use him, or are these the situations where checks aren't working and you just say, hey, you know what, I'm gonna make a play here, or is it a mix of both?
I mean, it's kind of a mix of both. Some are design run plays, some are read plays, some are scramble plays. So the scrambles add to our totals a lot. We have a really good running back room. And it is only really the second most carries on the team because we have a committee in the running back room. We got a bunch of guys that are really good there, so we kind of distribute them the ball equally. If you added up their total, it'd be way more than my rushing total. And we'd prefer to have the ball in those guys' hands for the most part.
Joe, you see this new NPI system, and it kind of is ushering you out and playing out weirdly in the process of it all. And I'm curious what players are saying or thinking right now, watching this stuff come in, because I'm sure people have said to you, hey, this stuff's weird, or I don't understand this, or I think we're getting screwed in the process, because I think many teams will feel that way at this point, this early in the system. I mean, what is the perception out there of, hey, 8 more teams in the playoffs, and, you guys, with 2 losses, if you lose again, you're pretty much dead. I think we can all kind of agree on that at this point. But, Johns Hopkins team, on the other hand, at 8-2, they're looking at this like, they don't know if they'll be in, out, or otherwise because of the way their schedule's panned out this season. But what are the players' views from what you've heard about NPI and the effects it's having right now in the playoff situation?
I mean, there's not a ton we've been talking about because it's not like a fully understood thing, as it's so new for us. But I think it's a good opportunity. We kind of know what we have to do. Our destiny's in our own hands at this point. And if we win out, it seems like we're going to be in the playoffs with this new NPI system, with the extra 8 teams in there, whether it's committee or it's the NPI rankings. If we win out, we should find ourselves in the playoffs. So,
yeah. Well, going back to what you said about new things, I had to do a double take over here because I don't remember this from last year, but you lead your team in punting, and you've had a touchback. You've dropped 4 punts inside the 20-yard line. I mean, what else can you? I mean, look at this guy. He throws the ball, he runs it, he's kicking it. So was this something that kind of came up in practice where Coach Milne was like, we'll let Joe try a couple punts here, and all of a sudden he was like, oh, wait a minute, this guy can actually do it. And are these plays like quick kicks, or have you actually been kind of like, hey, I could do this and help the team?
Well, some of the time on my punts, it's just out of our offensive formation, and there's no returner back, so that helps. But the last couple of weeks, I actually became the punter. We had an injury to our punter, so I was a backup for the whole year, which wasn't really seen because it didn't happen in games. And now that's my role, and I'm embracing it.
Hey, it's an opportunity to fake something too. Not that I'm, should be telling tales out of school. Coach Milne's going to put me down after saying that. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Nate Milne, okay, is somebody we've had on the show. He's, I've been basically almost a guest co-host with me and everything else. But
yeah,
it's a person. Yeah, well, he did better than you, JB. I hate to tell you, and me for that matter. But tell us about this guy. Tell us about, because Joe, I've grown to know you over the years. Okay, I've gone to enough games. We've had it on the show. Okay, you got the New Jersey in you. I had enough New York City in me for a number of years. I kind of get you. I kind of get the attitude, the personality, and everything. Milne kind of has this dry humor that I think for some reason works for you, if I had to guess. What is your relationship with Coach Milne? And I mean, in all seriousness too, though, I mean, what sets him apart in your mind as being an extraordinary head coach in Division III right now?
I mean, we have a really good relationship, and his saying is he's never had a bad day. He wakes up in the morning. We have morning meetings a couple days a week. And his energy is always the same. He'll wake up in the morning. He'll be talking. He'll be loud. He'll be making jokes with you at 6:30 in the morning, and he'll be the same way if we have 7 o'clock practice at night. It's good to know that what you're going to get from him. His sense of humor is always there. He's always cracking jokes in the light of anything. It doesn't really matter the situation almost, and it's just good resource to have. Very close team.
Yeah, it's something about that Mike Craig coaching tree, Frank, and especially the guys around 03 and 04, because Coach Bubnet at MIT is a pretty funny guy too. Also sort of dry humor. But one of the things, Joe, when I watch games at Homewood, it's really set up like a lacrosse field. The field just looks weird, right? As a player, does that factor in at all? Like, okay, the goalposts are over there, but the goal line is here. Is it just a football field for you guys?
I think more or less it's just a football field. The back of the end zones are a little funky with the darker coloring right behind it, but at the end of the day, it's just a football field, and we always have to adjust going on the road. It's always going to be a little bit different in a different atmosphere. So we're going to do that and try to put on our best show.
Yeah, try cutting clips for crunch time with that damned double end zone area there. I've gone to that field a number of times, and I still can't get it right, okay? It drives me insane. I mean, I love our friends at Johns Hopkins, don't get me wrong, but that was one thing with that lacrosse field, essentially, the way that they line, I guess, is why it plays out that way. But my God. Okay, Joe. Halloween, it is the day we're taping this. Okay, what did you dress up as for Halloween? What is the team doing for Halloween? You guys can't be just sitting on your hands waiting for a football game for travel on Friday or Saturday, whenever you guys are going down to Baltimore. So what is the Halloween experience for Joe Repetti and the Mules?
So trick or treat in our neighborhood was actually last Friday, which is pretty early, but me and a couple of my buddies, we dressed up as these big blow-up fall guys. You guys might not even know what those are. And then there was a couple of big blow-up cows in giant costumes, and we were just handing out candy to kids on the street corner. It was funny.
That's awesome.
The days like that, you miss James Nye, right?
Yeah, right. Frank was saying it's days like that you miss James Nye.
Oh, yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, and we would love to keep you on and keep shooting the breeze with you, but I think you've got a class to run to, so you kind of know the drill within the huddle. We'd love to give you the floor for shout-outs to any friends, family, teammates, coaches, and all that for checking in. And thank you, Joe. Good luck on Saturday. We'll look forward to seeing how the rest of the Mule season plays out.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I just want to thank my parents for giving me every opportunity in the world to succeed. All my coaches in the past, they've given me those opportunities as well, and then you guys for having me on here. This is a great platform you guys have, and it's a special thing you guys are doing. And thank you very much.
Joe, what's next for you before you run? I mean, after you graduate, what is next for you? Because we know the Mules have a good lineage out there for helping each other get jobs and everything else. What is the next step for you? So
I've recently been looking on LinkedIn and Handshake and reaching out to people, making connections. I'm a business management major, so I'm getting closer to that time where we're making a decision for a job. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like yet, but we're getting there.
I'm just going to say out loud here, and I say it, to a lot of our guests, sure, but with a guy like you, who I have grown to get to know through this whole process, this platform, as you called it, watch your maturity as well over the last few years. You kind of were just a kid from Jersey in your sophomore year that I got to know through it especially, and you have really come into your own as a leader. And so any employer out there that wants a true leader in the sense of the word, that's the guy for you right there, Joe Repetti. So make sure you find him on LinkedIn and do yourself a favor and get a good guy like that. Good talking to you, Joe, like JB said. And we'll be watching that game for sure coming up on Saturday.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, JB. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
You too.
Hey, Frank, I think we need to do a live edit. Pull up the Region 2 slide. Something's missing. Wait, and you're on mute, so it's like a real live show. We're screwing up along the way. Because you were talking about we were talking about Jersey. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not missing. I was like,
No, there it is. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I was like, did we forget to talk about the Breakfast Bowl? I mean, I got this new shirt that Coach Palazzo from Montclair State sent. I mean, yours might be in, I don't know if it's in Ballston Spa or in Manhattan. But yeah, so this is a great cause. Let me just pull this thing down off the wall here. I got this nice note from Coach that said thank you for all that we do, and then on the back. So Montclair State and Rowan programs have teamed up to launch the inaugural Breakfast Bowl, an annual tradition aimed at combating food insecurity in New Jersey. Breakfast Bowl will take place on November 2nd, with both schools partnering with the Community Food Bank of New Jersey to collect donations leading up to the game. And then we've got some quotes from Coach Palazzo. We've got some quotes from Coach Rulli. So the fans can playfully participate in the pork roll versus Taylor ham debate, and donations can be made directly to the Community Food Bank's Egg Harbor location. For those who call it pork roll, while those referring to it as Taylor ham, so they have different locations, and you do different things depending on what you're doing. And so the game's at 2:00 in Glassboro, the 53rd meeting of the two teams, and Montclair does hold a slight 36-26 advantage in the all-time series. And the winner of this Breakfast Bowl game is going to receive a trophy and unofficial bragging rights in the ongoing Taylor ham versus pork roll debate. So that's what we got. And I think this kind of stuff, especially fighting food insecurity, trying to help people in the community, is really good. But since I'm not a New York or a Jersey guy, I don't really know what a pork roll or Taylor ham is really all about. Maybe you've had one, Frank. I know we went to Montclair a couple of years ago for our preseason, kind of Region 2 overview, and what a beautiful campus and stadium they had there. But I don't know. Have you actually been to Jersey and had the pork roll or Taylor ham, Frank?
I cannot say I have. And actually, I see a person that might be able to tell us a little bit more about it, getting ready and set in the background here. So actually, why don't I begin to transition here to that person as you introduce them right now. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, he's the head coach of the Montclair State Red Hawks, I believe, is their mascot. And Coach Palazzo. Hey, man, how you doing, Coach? Thanks for the shirt. It looks pretty good. It's right size and everything. Oh, you needed the audio. Did you mute him? You mute yourself too, Frank. You're still muted, Frank. I can't hear you. Oop.
And then we lost him, but we had him, I think, the beauty in terms of audio. It doesn't matter.
Beauty of semi-live.
I want to go back to something. We will talk about that in a second, but going back to something that Joe Repetti was talking about. Let's go back to the MPI slide. Muhlenberg currently number 43. Johns Hopkins is in number 13 right now. And so he kind of suggested, if we win, we're in. Win out, basically, they're in. Remember, Muhlenberg still has to play Montclair to end the season. That is an out-of-conference game in Week 11 for Muhlenberg. So that's something that is up and coming, don't forget. But if Muhlenberg wins out, Joe, I think, is correct. They win. They may not get the Pool A bid because it could create a three-way tie with your Sinus and Johns Hopkins and Muhlenberg in it. And so the Centennial could be the interesting position of getting 2 or 3 teams ultimately in this whole thing. So if we get to Week 11 with Muhlenberg in an interesting spot. This guy, who I believe we got your audio set now, Coach, and we're all good to go. Yeah, you guys could actually play a role in that MPI discussion at that point in time. Coach Palazzo, though, first let's talk about this Breakfast Bowl and what led to it in the first place. Thanks for joining us, but what led to the Breakfast Bowl?
Well, thanks for having me. You guys can hear me okay now?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, beautiful. So excited to get this going. It was an idea I had couple years back, and the NJAC didn't have a trophy game. And watching your show all the time, I saw these D3 rivalries and these cool trophy games. And then, of course, you have Cortland and Ithaca right in our backyard in MetLife. And I really was just jealous. I wanted to have something for our league and our team. So this idea kind of came around during COVID because we all know we had a lot of time to think and hang out. So I thought of this game and said, well, what if we put this New Jersey debate on the line? And you got a school from North Jersey, and we call it Taylorham up in the north, and then you got the school in South Jersey calling it pork roll. So I just kind of kept trying to build the idea, plan it, and then when Coach Rulli took the job at Rowan, he's a friend of mine, so it worked well because I had my counterpart down there working on his end as well.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about how you guys have known each other all over these years, because I know that the big part of this game, kind of, I mean, it was on the schedule. It was going to happen one way or another. You guys have been playing each other. This is like the 60-something go around here, but. Was this when you had this idea and you knew that Coach Rulli was involved? I mean, was that much easier because it's like, hey, let's make this happen? Because tell us a little bit how you guys go back and how you know each other.
Yeah, so I actually played against and coached against Rulli when he was at Rowan. Obviously, we're both alum, and then I took his old job at Towson University as a quality control coach. So I didn't know if I was going to stay at Montclair. I didn't know where my career was going. So my first job outside of Montclair was at Towson, and he had just left Towson to go to Muhlenberg. So I heard about him, heard stories about him when I was there from the coaches, and then sometimes if I needed help, I'd actually text him. We never met, but I would text him and say, hey, I need help with this or with that, whatever it was. So that's how we kind of started to know each other, and then we met at the coaches convention, and we've just kind of been in touch all these years, and then I came back to Montclair. He was at Susquehanna, so we're always crossing paths on the road, recruiting and all that. So we've become friends over the years. And then when he was interviewing for the Rowan job, he gave me a buzz, just kind of picking my brain about the process with state schools and everything. And I said, hey, I got this idea that maybe you could even pitch in the interview that it should be really exciting. It could be fun. And then once he got the job, congratulated him, and then said, all right, let's get to work on this a little bit and make this game even more exciting.
Yeah.
It does amaze me how the coaching circle is honestly so small with everybody in that general region and whatnot, and everybody knows each other, everybody's kind of friends with each other, and then, you play each other, and then one day a year you hate each other kind of scenario, obviously, in a situation like that. You have to have an appreciation, though, for what Rulli's walked into, as you have had to basically steady the ship as, leadership's changed in Montclair as well. And you've done a great job at it. A lot of close games, but you seem to, we do enough crunch times where we see Montclair pulling out a close one against Union, against other teams out there as well. Always in the mix, it seems like. How has it gone for you in terms of trying to get this ship fully steadied, we'll call it that at least here, to, build a foundation to become the player in the NJAC ultimately against the teams like the Salisburys, the Rowans now again, and, everybody else that's in there?
Yeah, absolutely. You learn a lot, and even though you think you know what you're doing, you learn something new every day. And for me, it's just trying to not make the same mistake twice. I think, looking at yourself and taking accountability. Going into this year, we had pretty high expectations, and internally we felt pretty good. And, we lost a couple close games, like you said, and you learn a lot from that and say, well, why do we get to this point, and how do we fix it? So, I'm excited. It's even though it's a grind every day, and sometimes it doesn't go, like I said, the way you think it will. It's exciting to know that things are still moving in the right direction. It's like that old, it's not that old, I guess, but when Nick Sirianni with the Eagles said, like, even though the winds aren't coming, the flower is growing its roots, and that's the way I like to think about it. We're still rooting here. We're still trying to build that strong foundation for the future, and I'm excited, for this game as part of that and part of the overall experience of our athletes.
Yeah, and I think part of that rooting, like you said, looked like it took flight last weekend. You had a big 39-6 win over another Jersey school, William Patterson. And this guy, Greg Casimir, holy smokes, 52-yard field goal, 50-yard field goal. I mean, what a weapon. I mean, speaking of crunch time, we've seen a lot of missed field goals this season, but this guy seemed like Mr. Automatic. And in a rivalry game coming up this weekend with the trophy on the line, you might need this guy to kick a couple of those long field goals. Where did you find this guy? And I mean, Are we really getting to the point in D3 now where you kind of expect your kickers to be able to knock down 50-yarders?
Yeah, well, first of all, Greg has arguably one of the best names for a kicker you can have, Greg the Leg. So, that really helped, I think, the whole overall situation. But, yeah, I mean, the wind was picking up pretty good. I will say the wind probably assisted him a little bit, but he was a freshman for us last year. He won the job for us last year. And then this year, unfortunately, he missed the first field goal of the year. But since then, he's pretty much been on a tear. I think he's 9 of 10 since that first field goal. So he's been doing a good job, and he had a 42-yarder against Franklin Marshall week 2. So every opportunity I get, I'm going to try to use him. And like I said, in D3, there's been plenty of years here where we didn't have a guy that we could trust to make a field goal. And on Saturday, I knew he was feeling it, and he hit that 50-yarder, and I knew he had more in him. So at the end of the game, when we had that opportunity, there was no question in my mind, like, get out there and go hit it, and tied the school record. And I'm excited for his future here.
Cool Foot Luke, Greg the Leg. If you have any other kicker nicknames out there, folks, send them in. We'll happily add them to our crunch time package when they kick a big one or something like that.
Yeah.
Coach, we were talking about, as we were kind of fixing things here, how you still have influence possibly in MPI for some teams, no doubt. Obviously, your playoff hopes aren't there, but you still may have a bowl hope even beyond what we were talking about with the Breakfast Bowl later on, if you guys can work some magic here and win out. But we had Joe Repetti on, and so I'm going to give you a chance here because I know you've watched his career pretty intently over the years. Being a Jersey guy, he is, and everything else. You see a guy like him thrive in Division III football, and it's got to make your heart feel good about what you and other coaches out there are doing to try to create men out of young men, or men out of boys, or whatever you want to call it. Because there's an example of somebody that's just really done a great thing in Division III and became a leader in the process. Why do you stick around D3, and tell us your thoughts on a guy like Joe Repetti?
Yeah, the first part is exactly what you said. I enjoy the relationships, and I enjoy watching the relationships grow, and I enjoy watching guys become, young men and leaders. I actually just had this conversation with one of my juniors where, I didn't know what to expect of him as a freshman. And now as a junior, he's a real leader in the program. It really kind of surprised us, the kind of player he's developed into, which is a good thing. And, that in Division I with, NIL and all that stuff, it's hard to build a program. I feel like it's kind of just free agency every year. And again, I'm not in it, so I'm not trying to say negative things. They do a great job. But I really enjoy trying to build a program and watch a guy from his freshman year develop into a really great player by the time he's a junior or senior. And we have a ton of those guys in our program now. Like our middle linebacker, Nick Burgess, didn't play a defensive snap as a freshman. Last year, he was NJAC Player of the Year. And he's already in grad school, and he's going to be getting his MBA at the end of this spring. So it's cool to see that. And that's one of my favorite parts about that. And I feel like in the higher levels, you're not seeing that as much because guys are looking for the next opportunity, looking for paychecks. And again, I would too if I were them. I get it. But D3 is really kind of that, I think, that last old school college football where you can grow a team. And talking about Repetti, I mean, he's reminds me of, caliber-wise, I mean, maybe a little bit of a different player, but I coached against Callahan at Wesley. And, just the decisions that those guys make, and it's just like they're almost never wrong. And I remember we played Callahan his senior year in 2015, and they put 21 points on us before we could even blink. It was like, what just happened? And, you see a lot of that with Repetti, and he's just – he was good. And those are, probably two of the best quarterbacks I've seen in D3. And I've been doing this for a while. I've been playing, played D3 football in 2008 was my first year and been part of it pretty much ever since. So, I mean, when you say Repetti, the first guy that comes to my mind is Callahan. I mean, he was one of the best I've ever seen do it.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Well, we've had some fun catching up with you today, Coach, and talking about pork versus ham. And I have to ask, because, I mean, obviously, I love the backdrop with the Sam Mills jerseys, and, he recently was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But if I'm not mistaken, over your left shoulder, it looks like there's a pig on a pedestal. Is that the Breakfast Bowl trophy itself? Do you get to hang on to that and hopefully not have to give it away?
correct. Yeah, it's got to go. It's riding shotgun me. I'll grab it for you here. I actually was a little late. There you go. So I was a little late with coming onto this call because I had to go pick this up. It just came out, just got mounted today. So yeah, I mean, it's this was actually part of the idea for this whole thing. I mean, we're both mascots that have wings. Pork roll Taylor ham is from a pig. So I actually had this. I found this in my garage, and I said, you know what? I think this would be a perfect D3 trophy.
There you go. Yeah, it's funny, I've talked about this with Frank, and maybe we'll have to wait until season 20, or maybe when we're both old and gray and we can't do this anymore. But I would love to have a trophy game with we have our little microphone in our logo, like put that on a thing, and maybe like Union versus Hobart could be our kind of in the Huddle Bowl after doing this for all these years. But I'm really excited for you guys, and wish you luck this weekend. I think it's a great thing that you're doing for the community, helping with the food bank and raising money for those who maybe can't afford. I think a lot of us take for granted that we can just go to the grocery store and buy whatever we need every day or every couple of days. I mean, there are some people out there that are really struggling, and so the fact that you guys are doing this to help the community it really says a lot. So congratulations, good luck, and hopefully you get to keep that pig for a year. And and
I do have one more thing.
Spoils.
I do have one more thing, JB. We asked Joe this question before we let him go. We asked Joe about the player reactions to NPI so far, the new system, what they're feeling like and everything else. What are the coaches out there saying, Coach, about NPI right now? I've had some conversations with a couple that I'm not going to divulge too much on here, but there are a lot of concerns and confusion from the guys I talked to.
Just put you on the spot.
Yeah. What is your ear telling you from other guys out there, or your own views, if you want to add those right now, about how the NPI system is working here?
Yeah, I don't. It's tough for me to answer because to be honest, it's been a couple years since we've been in the playoffs. So I've always looked at D3 playoffs as you got to win the league. And, I understand some other leagues where they have a team that's just always winning the league, and then you kind of have to be that second place team, and how MPI will affect that. I've always felt like the NJAC, you got to win it. And if you're not winning the conference, it's hard for you to really have a say in things. That's the way I've always looked at it. So with the expansion and with MPI, I'm sure maybe my philosophy might change over the next year or two, seeing some of the teams that might get in. But I've always just been get the AQ, and that's your safe bet. I've always thought that way. I've never really felt like we were cheated. And I was on the winning end and the losing end of a three-way tie where we didn't get in 2014 and we were NJAC champions. And we got in 2010 when I was on the team playing, and we weren't, we were tri-champions, but we didn't get the AQ. So I've been on both sides of that, but like I said, I've always felt like, hey, win the league and then leave no doubt. So it's tough for me to really comment too much on it.
Yeah, that's fair. Speaking of one more, I guess I should have asked this earlier on, but what was your reaction yesterday to hearing about Castleton joining the league? I mean, a Vermont team, playing Jersey schools and Maryland and all that's a little bit different. I mean, they needed a home, so it's great that I think that they landed. But what is that? From your perspective, what does that add to the conference?
I think it's just good that we don't have to look for 4 out-of-conference games every year. And we've had the Centennial Agreement the last 2 years, which has been great. I only had to find 1 out-of-conference game. But now we have a deal with the Landmark, and we have now Castleton coming in. I only have to find 2 out-of-conference games. And those are pretty easy. I should say easy, but they're easier to find. I remember a couple years back, we couldn't find a Week 4 game to save our lives, and we ended up having to take an away game and play Hobart in a 1-year deal just because we couldn't find a game that week.
I remember that.
So, yeah, that was that. I don't want to have to live that way where we're like kind of trying to make deals and trying to make this all happen. I mean, even WPI 2 years ago, we played them at home and a home. That wasn't an easy week to schedule a game. So I'm glad Castleton's in there for us. It's not that bad. It's the same distance for Salisbury, so it's not that far away. CNU, that's a different story. But that's what they have to worry about, not so much for me. So, yeah, I'm excited about it, and we've never been up there, haven't played that school, so I'm excited for a new challenge.
I will say out loud, Terry Small, who is your commissioner, class act, somebody I've gotten to know over the years, and for him to help lead the charge to make this happen, kudos to him, because that team got screwed in the worst possible ways. And even Joe Loth over at WestCon was saying it when I interviewed him a few weeks back. What the Mask Act did, especially to Castleton, was just absolute disaster from PR point of view, and we're not going to let them forget it as far as I'm concerned, because you just don't do that. You don't do a one-year scenario with a team that came in thinking that this was their new home for good type of thing. I hope that the NJAC does treat them better. I know they will, because I know the NJAC has a better leadership foundation than the Mask Act. That's me saying that, not you. Don't worry about that. But I just want to make sure everybody understands that. The way you treat teams out there, it's how you're treating 100 young men, and making sure that they have the right scenario for them to be able to enjoy this aspect of football, that it's for the love of the game. And so we should be doing more to make sure that something like that never happens again. Ultimately, kudos to you guys for doing it, like I said. Thanks for joining us. Best of luck in the Breakfast Bowl, and let us know how it does go in terms of what you guys are able to raise ultimately as well, because it's a great cause.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Coach
luck,
Mike
Coach.
Palazzo.
Yeah.
Oh, my. So a lot of Region 2 discussion there today, JB, and
A little heavy.
but it's a big weekend. Again, we'll go back to the slide just for a half a second here. There are a lot of games. That
Look at
Westminster
the
Carnegie Mellon game, I mean, that's a big game now after Westminster did.
These are some nationally relevant games that are going to affect this stupid NPI system, and points are going to go here and there. And we don't know if the PAC is going to be a conference that's treated only one team, or maybe they can get in a runner-up who's 9-1. We'll see. I mean, it's very topsy-turvy right now. Hopkins Muhlenberg could send everything into a tailspin depending on how that turns out. So there's a lot of big stuff happening in Region 2. But let's look at some of the other games going on. You mentioned in Region 3, Frank, that
hold on one second. I just want to say one more thing. I just want to say one more thing on this slide real quick here, and then we will go to 3. I have it teed up. But the PAC race, we didn't really focus on Washington Jeff versus Case Western. If Case Western is able to knock off Washington Jefferson, that puts Grove City back in control of their own destiny at that point. So that's a game to watch as well, and something maybe we should add on to our predictions that are coming up in a little bit, because it's not currently on there, but we can do add-ons. There's no rule against that here.
Yeah,
so
throw it in there. Why not?
Yeah, we'll throw it in there, sure. Okay, Region 3, you want to talk about it. Here we go. Berry and Center, to me, is a huge game, because if Berry can knock off Center, they've created the three-way merry-go-round in the SAA after what Trinity did to Berry last week. And we'll start to get the tiebreakers dusted off. I don't know if they're all relevant, because some of them used the strength of schedule that the NCAA used to use, and those conferences may not have changed those. The Centennial has not responded to my request about theirs, because they have that situation there. And so I wonder if I didn't create a little bit of a firestorm internally about what they're going to do in that situation.
You creating firestorms? You never do that, Frank. Come on.
Never. Not me. Mary Hardin Baylor ETBU
Not
at
you.
ETBU is interesting. I told you I will be attending a Region 3 game not on this list. That's Hardin Simmons hosting Howard Payne Friday night.
It got moved
so
to Friday,
tonight, technically, for when we're dropping this show. Randolph-Macon, Washington Lee. As much as I would have loved to get out there, guys, I am displaced location-wise. I have an obligation this weekend. So we would love to, keep doing what you're doing, and next year, or maybe later this season, depending on what's going on, we'll be able to get out there. But thanks for thinking of us on X and dropping us the notes that you did. You picked that game as your game of the week, and I guess the question as a precursor to the predictions for you is, do you think WNL at home is going to be able to keep up with a Randolph-Macon team that seems to be finding its footing finally after some real hiccups in the first 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think earlier on the season, I thought there was a chance that the Generals could, win the ODAC. I mean, they had that rough start against Salisbury. They barely lost to Trinity in week 3. but they have rattled off 4 wins in a row now, but maybe not against the same level of gauntlet as Randolph-Macon, who's had to play Bridgewater, and they beat Bridgewater so convincingly. I was like, whoa. I mean, that 49-16 game from last weekend really sort of made me rethink my whole thing. You know, they barely squeaked by Shenandoah in week 5, so there was that. But it does seem, you know, you look at the last 3 weeks, Randolph-Macon's won 63-0, 49-10, and 49-16. It does seem like they're kind of kicking it into a whole nother gear. So, you know, both teams come into this game undefeated atop the conference standings. You know, Bridgewater is kind of laying in wait there at 3-1, but the winner of this game pretty much has the inside track for the ODAC championship. So it should be a good one, but it does seem like the Yellow Jackets might be the pick there. Here we go. We got. Where's Randolph-Macon on here?
Randolph-Macon's number 18. Looking down this chart, so that's the first team that's in there. Then you try to go down and find the next ODAC team. Bridgewater, I think, is at 45. Is the next one. Washington lead 50. A win by Washington Lee would put them close to the cut line, I think. It may not be enough to get them over the cut line, though. So if they have a Pool C necessity eventually. They may not get there. It just depends really on how, you know, the teams around them do in that situation. But
W&L has a tough. Yeah, W&L has a tough final schedule. They've got basically the 3 best teams in the conference they have to go up against. So it's Randolph-Macon this weekend, Bridgewater at Bridgewater in week 10, and then they have to play Shenandoah at home in week 11. So there's a chance that they could fall off a cliff here. Maybe we'll see, or they could shock the world and win the ODAC.
Let's go Region 4. Not much to talk about. Albion versus Hope, which is both our game of the week. But I also picked Denison Wabash because Denison's made some noise this season. There's no doubt that they have the ability to do something here. We'll predict it as a result of me picking it as one. But Trine Alma is an interesting game too. Just teams that are perennial, players in the MIAA to see what comes up from that situation. Won't belabor this slide too long. Region 5. We both picked Benedictine versus Aurora. There's some big Region 5 games to come, especially in the Midwest Conference.
Actual conference
coming up.
Championship game.
Yep. So, if Aurora wins, that does it. Is that what we're looking at here, right?
Pretty much, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
they'll clinch.
We'll predict it. I'm not going to give a hint here, but I think you won't be surprised at where I go with this. But, not much in terms of meat on the Region 5 schedule for this week. Check us next week if you're a Region 5 person. Well, hold on. I will go back for a second here. You had brought up North Park, maybe being a team eventually it's going to be something good for North Central. But then a game like North Park Carthage will kind of take their stock down for North Central's numbers ultimately. North Central's got a real problem with their NPI coming up because their schedule is just not a group of big winners except for North Park. But you need North Park's strength of schedule to really help buoy you at this point if you're North Central. Otherwise, we could be looking at a North Central team that's fighting to stay in the top 8, and that would mean that they are not in that protected class of playing at the 7 or 8 seed, basically, in that scenario. So I'm curious to watch how North Central's numbers get affected by what's left out there. That's another MPI headache waiting to happen, potentially. But we'll see. If they keep winning and other teams don't, then it sort of makes that whole discussion moot. Region 6, River Falls, Whitewater, La Crosse, Stout. Those are our games of the week. And Martin Luther Northwestern is essentially a big game in the UMAC, ultimately. The winner of that, I believe, doesn't necessarily clinch, but should, right? Are we getting to that
Pretty
point?
much.
Yep.
I would say like right now, if you look at the UMAC standings, you've got Northwestern at 4-0. You got Martin Luther and Greenville at 3-1. So I mean, basically, Northwestern has a chance to kind of put themselves over the top here because if they win this game, then they do play Greenville the next week. So Greenville is still technically in it. Really, this could be an elimination game for Martin Luther, who at 3-1 with 2 losses would not be in contention for the title.
Should also point out that on the NPI look here, when we look at Claremont Mudd Scripps and Chapman, Claremont Mudd Scripps needs a win here, and it's just for some protection, obviously. Otherwise, they're going to be. Yeah, well, it's not that they'll need necessarily a pool C bid. I'm looking more at how they'll be bracketed up. And so if they win a game like this, they may be able to propel themselves above the 7A, 7B range ultimately if they can win out this season.
That would be good for them.
So, yeah, but Chapman's a team that can bite them. There's no doubt, especially on the road. So be careful there if you're Claremont Mudd Scripps here. Chapman knows how to win these games, especially at home. In that scenario. So there is that discussion there. And, well, I think we're going to be getting to predictions here, so why don't we put this on the screen?
While you're getting that ready, Frank, we have to go to a fan question that we didn't answer last time about our favorite horror or Halloween movies. So I'll say mine has always been Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. I don't know, it's something about that one. I'm not a big fan of like the slasher Friday the 13th or the Freddy's and all that kind of blood and gore stuff. I kind of like more like the supernatural sort of fun kind of the Wolfman stuff like that. So that would be my pick. It was funny. I think the context was what would be a horror movie for X team playing against somebody else. I don't know who's North Central playing this weekend. So it could be for that kind of thing. We'll see. What's your favorite horror movie, Frank, or Halloween movie? I guess.
Boy, that's a tough one. Honestly, I watch so few movies. I just have no time to even catch up on the old stuff. No, I've never really been that much. I mean, the old Halloween flicks, though, were obviously kind of campy, fun stuff, and. Friday the 13th, I was never a big fan of that, the platform of Halloween movies or horror movies. But, I mean, it's tough out there to pick. And, the Chucky dolls, Child's Play, maybe that was, the original was decent. That they killed that one, too, though, for that matter. Actually, I know, my biggest horror flick is what's over my head right now, JV leading by 5 games. That's a horror flick of horror flicks right there. Yeah, okay, you calm down over there, buddy. Okay, calm down. You came out here with a Dodgers helmet on. You made me cry about the Union Hobart game. I mean, what are you doing? Oh, God, here we go again. Let's pick these. We have 10 minutes on the clock. We'll add one game, as we said, to this as well. And let's go. I start with Westcott at UMass Dartmouth. Hell of a way to start, huh? I mean, this is, I guess it's a question of, Dante being able to win big games at certain times. And I think it's been inconsistent as quarterback out there. And I think I saw a maturity of him last week where even he knew while they were up 10-0, they were still struggling, and he's becoming a perfectionist if he wasn't one already. And I think that's important. You can't overdo that because you start getting yourself in trouble if you do. Yes, I probably should have started a clock, so clearly I'm not a perfectionist either. But I think Mass Dartmouth has a slight edge here. They're both putting up some gory numbers against their competitors this season. I will give the Corsairs a slight edge here, 42-38.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what happened last year, and this game wasn't even close. I mean, I would have to think that the seniors and fifth-year guys at UMD have had this one circled for a while, but WestCon's on a mission too. They have. I will tell you flat out, there was some discussion that I'm not going to get directly into here about this and some of the treatment from last year after WestCon won, that they have not forgotten this game, this team, and wanting to kick their asses on the way out the conference, basically. So I think that's just clear, and you would not expect that. But I just want to underscore your point is correct, yes. Yeah, and so when you look back on WestCon's schedule, I mean, they've been beating teams up, but it's a lot of Fitchburg, Worcester. I mean, they lost to Merchant Marine by 20 almost, and so Yeah, I think this UMass Dartmouth team that's determined. They're going to stick it to these guys, and high scoring game. But I'll say UMass Dartmouth wins 44-35.
Del Val Kings, you go.
I think this Kings team is better than the ones we've seen in years past, and they could pull this out. But after that Jaquez Maben 5-sack performance against FDU, it seems like Aggies have turned the corner. They have this new quarterback that, if Louis Berrios IV can't play, is capable. I'll take the Aggies in a close one, lower scoring, 17-14.
Speaking of Nick Arcaroli, the quarterback that came in against that FDU Florham team, I just feel like Del Val is like Randolph-Macon. They turned a corner after a struggle earlier in the season and remembered how to win games the right way again. And so I'm going to give Del Val the edge here too, by a score of 31-24. I think it'll be a good game. Don't get me wrong on this. Next up is Muhlenberg at Johns Hopkins. I'm sad I'm not going to get to go to this game for like the 15th straight year. I feel like it's like old home week when I go out there for this. I did go 3 years in a row for all that don't remember.
I'll miss you at the Blue Jay Bar, Frank.
Yes, they will. And the referees will miss me under the goalpost area because the same referee crew from last year is refereeing it again this year. So we'll see. Okay. But tough one. Willa J's back. I think Bay Harvey is back for Johns Hopkins, so that changes the offensive scheme. The Hopkins defense has been incredible this season, but they're going against Joe Repetti in the offense from Muhlenberg that has put up gory numbers again, 30-plus points every game. So something's got to give here. I picked against Hopkins multiple weeks in a row here, and I've kind of got my ass kicked for it in these standings. Boy, this is tough. You picking Hopkins or Muhlenberg? Oh, see, you don't even know.
I was. Yeah, it's tough, man. But I guess if
I'll pick Muhlenberg. You pick Hopkins.
Okay,
how's that?
Sounds good.
I'll take Muhlenberg by 3 points, 31-28. You pick Hopkins, whatever score you want to pick it at.
21-17.
There you go. Hopefully we just did that, but either one of us, we're going to have problems on that one. Westminster, Carnegie Mellon, your first
favorite kid.
Yeah, really. Go.
I think Westminster showed a lot of gumption with that win over Case last Saturday night, but Carnegie Mellon, I think, is with their defense is going to be tough. So I'll take the home team in this one in a lower scoring game, like 21-14.
Yeah, if Westminster can win this game, it's turned the whole conference on its head, and Westminster Grove City becomes a huge game in Week 11 at that point. It's already a big game in some ways for the regionality of those two teams. I'm going to agree with you here. I'm not going to take the flyer opportunity, so I say Carnegie Mellon does win 27. 14-10. 14-10. These teams are great defensive teams, I think, after watching what happened last weekend.
Yeah, they are.
In the ODAC, we have Randolph-Macon at Washington Lee. For the reasons I mentioned earlier, I think Randolph-Macon's turned a corner, knows how to win the games again. I'll take the Yellow Jackets by a final score of 37-21.
Yeah, I think you talked me out of my WNL pick earlier, Frank, so I'm going to go with the Yellow Jackets, say like 45-35. High scoring.
Could have picked up a game if I didn't open my big mouth, right? Barry at center, your turn.
Barry's got to be mad after having 5 touchdowns by Brandon Cade and still losing. So I think the Vikings are going to mix things up in the SAA, and they'll win a tight one, 35-31.
I was hoping you'd go center on this one. Yeah, I know. You know what? Center at home, a chance to essentially win the SAA by winning this game because they've already taken it to Trinity. I'm going to say center wins this. It goes against kind of my initial thought on this game, but being at home matters, I think, this late in the season. And I feel Coach K and his team can bounce back. Backwards? Is it backwards?
I think we got this reversed. Yeah, I think it's at Barry. Yeah, that might be my fault, which it probably is. So
yeah,
I think that's a home game for Barry. Yep.
There it is. Okay, that's the case. I'm picking the home team. Barry, thanks for talking me out of that one.
Okay. Yeah.
Barry wins 24-21 in this game. God. Look, we didn't edit the show, even though we taped it. We did not edit the show, folks. It should be clear by now. Albion at Hope. Hope's been clicking like no other this season, and so why stop now with Hope at home? They win 47-30.
Yeah, Dutchman all the way, 49-21.
Denison and Wabash, go.
Little Giants are on a tear. Denison, the Big Red, have played top-ranked teams tough, but I think too much Wabash, so 35-28, Little Giants.
Yeah, Little Giants will fight here and get a good win at home by a final score of 41-20. Let's go to Benedictine at Aurora. I just think Aurora's got too much fight in them right now. That ever since that North Central game, they've turned things around the right way, and so I give them credit here under Coach Beebe for getting to this point again where they're going to be a player inside these playoffs once they get there after win against Benedictine by the final score of 30-17.
I think they're going to put up more points than that, Frank. I'm going to say the Spartans win 63-14.
Wow. That was James Baker that said that, guys. Just want you to know. River Falls at Whitewater. You first.
Oh, man. This is basically kind of like it's weird. You'd think that this game would have like national impacts, and at this point it's kind of really this is a survival game for River Falls, who only has 2 losses. Whitewater could play spoiler and maybe wreck their season. So yeah, why not? What the heck? Warhawks bounce back. They pull the Falcons down with them, 28-24.
Damn it all! I was sure you were going to pick River Falls here. I was going to have another difference with you. I got to agree with you. I just, on the road to the Perk, River Falls, let me have some straight talk here with River Falls. Why wasn't Riley Wrzinski, the quarterback in the fourth quarter? I don't get what some of the progression was in that game. But then why didn't you start Cade Fitzgerald in the first place? I don't get what's been going on with the quarterback choices now that Caleb Blaha seems to be injured.
He won the game 2 weeks ago in overtime. I mean, that guy could play. I mean, he's
something weird
like
there.
Blaha, like he can move.
Let me tell everybody flat out: 2 quarterback systems are the devil. They really are, because it just takes away the rhythm of the team. The offensive line has to block differently. The center, the exchanges are different. And it's not the way to go in the long term. I truly have become a believer in that. After watching Union tried many years ago, and it wasn't good. And a lot of teams just struggle doing it. Whitewater wins. I assume it's Chris under center again. He didn't do horribly last week, and he was asked to do a lot in this weird situation. So I'll give Whitewater the edge here, 24-17. Not finally, we'll add one more, but Lacrosse at Stout. I just think Lacrosse is going to take it to Stout and try to prove here that they still belong. Lacrosse wins the game 41-14.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with the Eagles. Like, they've had a little topsy-turvy season, but they only have 2 losses in Division III. So if there is going to be a third team that squeaks in from the WIAC, WEAC, whatever these days, it could be them. They might just do a late push, and let's see what happens. Yeah, I'll take the Eagles to win 35-24. Gabe Lynch is going to be the guy.
There you go. With a big smile on his face, right? It's this, right?
Bonus.
Yeah. bonus. You start technically, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think W&J with is it Pugh's their quarterback? Is that the guy's name?
Pugh.
Yeah, and with that defense, they've got they just have, I think, especially with the way we saw Fromberg kind of wilt under pressure last Saturday night. He's going to be under a lot of pressure from Dawson Dietz. Is that the guy's name, the defensive lineman from the Presidents? So I'll take the other Sirianni coach guys to win on the road in Cleveland, say 28-17.
The second Sirianni reference in our show today, one being the Eagles coach that we had from Coach Palazzo.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something, okay? I beat up Fromberg, I think it was last week, with the end of that game against Westminster. I think I said the word choked, which I apologize. It probably was not the best word choice ever. But the thing I'm going to say is that in a game like this, where they are not expected to produce, this is where packed teams like Case Western show up. And as a result, I'm going to pick them for the upset here. At home, I think they can do this.
Read about it and quick hits tomorrow. Friday.
Very potentially here. So I'm going to say the Case Western Reserve wins this game. Another defensive battle, 20-14. And that is what we've got for you here, folks. A lot of good games. And, Week 10 and Week 11... I should bring up this slide, actually, as I kind of start saying this now, if I can even find it. There it is. Who's left undefeated? We can up the font size now because we only have 13 teams left. And, you look at this, and the reminder one more time is only one conference is going to have a head-to-head with undefeated teams, and as Marietta, Mount Union. That is it. And everything else, you could end up with 12 undefeated teams this season if everybody wins out. Will they? I mean, Springfield, they still have to play Merchant Marine. Mass Dartmouth, they have the WestCon game, so that one is an interesting one. Cortland, they still have to play Ithaca and Brockport, so it's not a gimme yet for them. Salisbury, I think they've been through kind of the meat of their schedule. I think they're okay. Hardin-Simmons, who the hell knows? I want to see how they come out against Howard Payne, that's for sure. DePaul, they got the Moan and Bell game. Hope, they look pretty good right now. We just talked about Marietta, Mount Union. Lake Forest, they've got Monmouth still, and Chicago. North Central, I think they're good. St. John's, they have the MIAC championship game technically. Got a cat behind me here, you'll see in a second. Whitworth still has to play Linfield. And honestly, I think Linfield's the better team right now. So we could be down to 4 or 5 undefeated teams, which is low by comparison, meaning we're going to have a whole bunch of 9-1 teams going at it for Pool C bids possibly as well, not just conference championships. How do you watch this weekend of Division III football? I know we have a 3 o'clock start with the MASCAC. The Breakfast Bowl is actually at 2 o'clock, so they should have made that an 11 a.m. start for the real Breakfast Bowl.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, obviously, for Friday, you'll know what the result of the Westfield Mass Maritime game is from Halloween night at 7 o'clock. But yeah, starting on Saturday, we got some good noon kickoffs with Gallaudet and Alfred State, W&E Husson. Starting at 1, we got Del Val versus Kings, sort of a conference championship preview there. You got Moravian, Susquehanna, Westminster, Carnegie Mellon, Wash and Jeff versus Case Western. You've got Barry versus Center, Maryville versus Bellhaven. And then when we start to pivot into the 2 p.m. time frame, we got games like Muhlenberg Hopkins, Montclair Rowan for the Breakfast Bowl. We got UMHB ETBU. And then as we start to go into the 3 o'clock time frame, Randolph-Macon versus Washington Lee. We got Hobart RPI, which is a good Liberty League game. We've got WestCon Mass Dartmouth. Out in the Midwest, you got Benedictine and Aurora, 2 p.m., a bunch of games kicking off at 2 p.m. out that way. You've got River Falls, Whitewater, La Crosse, Stout, Martin Luther, Northwestern. And then as it gets later on into the day, not a lot of night games this weekend that sort of stand out, Frank. You got, I mean, Millsaps is going for their, I think, their fifth win against Rhodes at 4 p.m. You've got, the Bowden-Bates CBB thing going off at 5:30. Bates had a big win over Middlebury that we talked about on Crunch Time. So it looks like the Bobcats are doing some things in the NESCAC, which is fun. But that's about it. And then you kind of get into some of the late night West Coast games. The Claremont Chapman game, if you really want to stay up, that's going to be a good one, and will have some implications on the playoffs and who's in and who's out. So that's how I would try to run it, and enjoy Week 9. We'll good luck with the with the officiating, down there in Austin, and enjoy the game on Friday night. We'll be looking for your tweets.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get a Region 3 game under my belt, and as always, watch for JB on X throughout Saturday. I'll be on X Friday night. We'll have our show midweek next week, obviously, for Crunch Time. And NPI data coming at you probably on Sunday. Some quick observations that we'll have from that as well. So fasten your seatbelt, folks. This is as he called
Twitter
it, the crunch time
maybe.
of the season.
Sunday night? Maybe we'll do a Twitter space.
We'll see how it goes. Folks, enjoy your weekend. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us.